burn tension and ending momentum.
Sweating.
I shouldn't have noticed her the way I did.
What are
But
you
when she looked
doing?
up at me,
I don't
standing in
know.
that narrow hallway,
You don't know?
it felt like the air thinned. Her voice was low, a little rough around the edges, like someone who had said too many things she wished she could take back. You're hard to ignore. I don't know what made me answer the way I did. Maybe it was the silence between us. Maybe it was the way her hand lingered on the doorframe. That makes two of us, I said. And just like that, everything I thought I knew about keeping distance slipped. It started with something small. Her front porch light wouldn't stay on. She asked if I could take a look since she'd seen me working on my dad's tools in the garage. I told myself it was nothing, just a neighbor helping another neighbor. But when she opened the door, holding the half-broken bulb like it was something delicate, I realized how wrong I was. She was in her mid-40s, maybe older, but it didn't matter. What struck me was how put together she seemed, and yet, in the corners of her eyes, there was a kind of tiredness. She led me inside, barefoot on wooden floors, the faint smell of coffee still hanging in the air. "You don't have to fix it," she said, as if she were already apologizing for asking. "I don't mind," I told her, but my voice came out quieter than I meant. I climbed the step stool while she stood too close behind me, handing me screws I didn't really need. The silence wasn't empty. It hummed. Every time I glanced down, she was already looking at me, and when our eyes met, she never looked away as quickly as most people do. "You're younger than I thought," she said finally, after I tested the light and it flickered back to life. "Is that a bad thing?" I asked. I meant it as a joke, but my throat tightened when I said it. She smiled. Not big, not obvious, just a curve at the edge of her mouth. "I shouldn't be doing this." Her hand brushed mine when she reached for the bulb box. A deliberate accident. I froze. Neither should I. It wasn't a declaration, not even a promise. It was an admission, naked and sharp. The kind you can't take back once it's out. She poured 2 glasses of water at the kitchen counter, her back to me. I watched the way her shoulders moved under a soft sweater, the way she hesitated before setting the glass in front of me like she wasn't sure if I would take it. I did. My fingers grazed hers again. Too long this time. Neither of us moved. The room felt too quiet, the kind of quiet where even breathing seemed like it might break something fragile. She finally pulled her hand back, wrapping her arms around herself as if to keep from reaching for me. I wanted to say something, anything, to ease the weight pressing between us. Instead, the only words that came were raw, slipping out before I could stop them. "You're the first person to make this place feel less empty." She turned then, slowly, as though she'd been waiting for me to say it. Her eyes held mine in a way that made my chest tighten. There was no laughter in them, no casual dismissal, just recognition. And when she stepped closer, just one step that erased the safe distance we'd kept all night, I knew we had already crossed a line neither of us could uncross. Her voice was a whisper now, almost breaking. "So what happens if we don't stop?" I didn't answer, couldn't, because she was close enough that my hand, resting on the table, brushed against hers again. This time with no mistake, no excuse. And she didn't pull away. Emotional tension, ending on a turning point. The light above her porch was fixed, but nothing inside me felt steady. I should have left right after, thanked her for the water, and walked back to my side of the street. That would have been the safe choice. But safe choices had a way of keeping me up at night. She leaned against the counter, holding her glass like she didn't know what to do with it. "You remind me," her voice caught. She shook her head, forcing a small laugh that didn't match her eyes. "Never mind. That's not fair." I wanted to ask who I reminded her of, but the way her shoulders stiffened made me swallow the question. Instead, I sat back in the chair like I had every right to stay there, like I wasn't already in over my head. She was older, she was supposed to have control over moments like this. And yet, I could feel her slipping just as badly as I was. "You just got out of something, didn't you?" I asked. The words came before I thought better of them. Her hand stilled on the counter. For a moment, the only sound was the hum of the refrigerator. Then she turned, her face softer now, unguarded. I was married. A long time. Longer than you've probably been alive. And now it's... She let out a breath. Now it's quiet. Too quiet. I studied the way she avoided my eyes. The way she held her wrist with her other hand like she needed something to anchor herself. It made her look smaller than I'd ever seen her. And something in me ached. I should have told her I understood. That I'd leave her to her quiet. But instead I found myself leaning forward. You don't have to explain. Her gaze snapped back to me. Sharp. Like she wasn't sure if she should be angry or grateful. But she didn't look away. I noticed things I shouldn't have. The faint scar near her collarbone. The way her hair fell loose from the tie at the back of her neck. How her lips pressed together like she was holding back too much. Every detail made it harder to breathe, harder to pretend this was just another evening. You make it sound simple, she whispered. Maybe it is. My voice cracked on the last word. She stepped closer then, slowly, like she was testing how far I'd let her come. My pulse hammered, but I didn't move back. You don't know what you're asking for, she said. Almost a warning, almost a plea. I wanted to tell her she was wrong, that I did know, that I'd been thinking about this from the moment I stepped inside her door, but the words jammed in my throat. Instead, I felt her fingers graze my arm, just above the elbow. It wasn't casual, not this time. Her touch lingered, warm through the sleeve of my shirt, and I knew it was a question. Stay a little longer, she said softly. I should have walked away, but the truth was I didn't want to. External pressure, and a cliffhanger beat. I told myself I'd only stay a few more minutes. Long enough to not look rude, not long enough to regret it. But minutes stretch differently when someone keeps looking at you like she does, half defiant, half exposed. She sat across from me at the table, her fingers wrapped too tightly around her glass. You're making this harder than it already is, she said, her tone low, almost like she was blaming herself more than me. I don't mean to, I answered. My thumb tapped against the side of my chair, restless. Her eyes softened, and for the first time, she looked tired in a way that wasn't just about her divorce or the quiet house. It was deeper, like she'd been carrying a secret weight for years. You remind me of who I was before. Her voice broke slightly on the last word. I swallowed hard. The air between us was too heavy now. I leaned forward before I could stop myself. You don't have to go back, I said. Not if you don't want to. Her lips parted like she might answer, but instead her hand moved across the table. Her fingers brushed mine, tentative, as though she wanted to see if I'd flinch. I didn't. I let them stay there. The sharp trill of her phone shattered the moment. We both jumped slightly. She reached for it, hesitating when she saw the screen. Her jaw tightened before she turned it face down, silencing the ring. Everything okay? I asked, my voice rougher than I meant. It's fine, she said too quickly. She tried to smile, but it didn't hold. Just someone I don't want to talk to right now. The silence after that was different, sharper, edged. I could still feel where her hand had brushed mine, like the skin there was branded. I knew I should stand up, make an excuse, go home before this became something we couldn't undo. But my body wouldn't listen. Instead, I heard myself asking, do you regret letting me stay? Her laugh was soft, bitter. I regret a lot of things. Not this. Not yet. I leaned back in my chair, running a hand through my hair, trying to shake the heat crawling up my neck. I needed space, perspective, anything to cool what was building inside me. But when I looked up, she was already watching me, her chin resting on her hand, her gaze unblinking, the kind of look that strips excuses away. I shouldn't be telling you this, she said slowly, but it feels like I've been waiting for someone to just see me again. Her honesty cut through me, sharper than the ring of the phone. I opened my mouth to tell her I did see her. Every scar, every silence, every hesitation. But the words tangled in my throat. Instead, I pushed my chair back slightly, a pathetic attempt at distance. She noticed, and then, with a steady calm that made my pulse spike, she stood and crossed the room until she was standing right beside me. Her hand brushed my shoulder, light, deliberate, and she leaned down just enough that her hair grazed my cheek. "Tell me," she whispered, so close I could feel her breath. "If I asked you not to stop, would you?" Her whisper lingered in the air, heavier than anything else in the room. "If I asked you not to stop, would you?" I didn't answer right away. Couldn't. My chest felt too tight, my throat too dry. Every instinct screamed at me to stand, to leave before I drowned in something I wasn't ready for. But I didn't move. Instead, I tilted my head just enough to meet her eyes. They were wide, searching, as though she wanted me to give her an answer she wasn't sure she could handle. "Why me?" I finally asked. The words cracked, uneven. "You could have anyone. Why me?" Her hand slipped from my shoulder, but she didn't step back. Her lips parted, then closed again, like she was weighing the cost of telling me the truth. When she finally spoke, her voice was raw, stripped bare. "Because you don't look at me like I'm broken." The admission hit me harder than I expected. She wasn't teasing, she wasn't playing. It was the kind of honesty that carried years of silence behind it. I opened my mouth to reply, but the sound of her phone buzzing again cut through us. This time she didn't move to silence it. The screen lit up, the name flashing bright. She stared at it, frozen. "Is it him?" I asked quietly. Her jaw tightened. She nodded once. "Ex-husband." The word came out like poison. "He always calls when he feels me slipping away." I clenched my fists under the table, fighting the urge to say what I wanted to. Let him go, choose me instead. But I bit it back. My thoughts were too loud already. She turned the phone over, screen down, and when she looked back at me, there was fire in her eyes. "Do you have any idea what you're doing to me?" The question snapped something in me. "You think I don't feel it too?" My voice rose before I could stop it. "I can't even sit in this room without." I cut myself off, dragging a hand over my face. "God, I shouldn't be here." She stepped closer, her hand trembling now as it hovered near mine on the table. "But you are." I looked up at her then, really looked. The strands of hair falling across her cheek, the faint scar on her lip, the way her chest rose and fell too quickly. All of it pressed against the part of me that had already crossed the line, even if my body hadn't followed yet. "If we do this," I whispered, "there's no going back." Her breath caught, but she didn't pull away. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The silence was thick, charged, the kind of silence that held more meaning than any confession could. And then she leaned in, her eyes never leaving mine. "Maybe that's the point," she whispered. The room went still, every sound swallowed, every excuse gone. All that remained was her stare, waiting, daring me to decide what came next. Her whisper still hung in the air. "Maybe that's the point." When I finally leaned back, desperate for space I couldn't find. I should have kissed her. I should have walked out. I did neither. Instead, I asked the one question that had been gnawing at me since the beginning. "Why me? Really?" She held my stare for a long beat, her jaw tightening like she was fighting herself. Then, finally, she let the words fall. "Because I already know you." The room tilted. I blinked at her, unsure if I'd heard right. "What do you mean, know me?" She pulled back then, her hand gripping the edge of the counter for balance. "You came to my house when you were little. Your dad fixed our roof after a storm. You must have been 6, maybe 7. I gave you lemonade on the porch. You probably don't even remember. But I did. A faint memory, blurred by time, sharpened in an instant. sitting on her porch steps, legs too short to reach the ground, watching her set a glass in front of me with that same curve of a smile. My stomach nodded. That was you. Her eyes softened, regret written in every line of her face. It feels like a lifetime ago. And then suddenly there you were again, taller, older, looking at me in a way I couldn't ignore. The air between us shifted, heavy with something I didn't know how to name. You should have told me, I said, my voice low. Would it have changed anything? She asked quickly. Yes. I shot back, then faltered. No, I don't know. The silence that followed was jagged. For the first time, I saw the risk not just in what we were doing now, but in how deep her history ran into mine. She wasn't just a woman I happened to notice. She was part of a past I hadn't realized I carried. Before I could say more, there was a sharp knock at the door. We both froze. Her head whipped toward the sound, panic flashing across her face. Don't move. She slipped into the hall, her bare feet barely making a sound against the floor. I stayed rooted in place, heart pounding. Muffled voices floated from the front entry. A man's voice, deep, steady, too familiar. When she came back, she looked pale. It was him, she whispered. He still has keys. He thinks he does. I stood, fists clenched. He can't just stop. She cut me off, pressing a trembling hand against my chest. If he sees you here, it'll be worse. He'll know. Her palm stayed there a moment too long, her eyes begging me not just to stay silent, but to stay hers. The knock came again, louder this time, followed by the rattle of a doorknob. And in that instant, with her hand pressed to me, her face inches from mine, I realized the truth. It wasn't just forbidden anymore. It was dangerous, building toward their decision. The pounding on the door finally stopped, leaving the house in a silence that buzzed in my ears. She leaned against me, her palm still on my chest, her breath unsteady. He'll be back, she whispered. He always comes back. I covered her hand with mine before I could think. Then let him. You don't owe him anything anymore. Her eyes flicked up to mine, sharp, questioning, but beneath the steel I saw it. The exhaustion, the years of being cornered by someone who wouldn't let go. You make it sound so easy, she said, her voice breaking. But every choice I've ever made, it follows me. It ruins things. The urge to close the distance nearly swallowed me whole. I wanted to tell her she couldn't ruin this, not if I didn't let her. Instead, I said the only thing that felt true. I don't care what came before. I only care about what's here right now. Her lips trembled, like she wanted to believe me but didn't know how. You'll regret it, she said softly. Maybe. My thumb brushed the back of her hand. But I'd regret walking away more. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then she pulled her hand free and turned away, pacing toward the kitchen window. She pressed her palms against the counter, shoulders tense, as though she was holding herself back from something dangerous. Do you know how long it's been since anyone touched me without expectation? She asked, her voice low, fragile. The confession hit me like a punch. I stood, slowly, giving her space but not distance. Then let me be the first, I said. She spun, eyes wet, her laugh bitter. You think that fixes me? No, I answered quietly. I think it fixes me. The silence after that was unbearable. I stepped closer, close enough that I could see every line around her eyes, every scar time had left on her. Close enough that she could push me away if she wanted. She didn't. Instead, she whispered, God help me, and let her forehead rest against mine. The weight of the moment cracked something open in both of us. I didn't kiss her, not yet, but I let my hand rest on her cheek, let her lean into it, let the years of loneliness between us collapse into something neither of us could name. You have to promise me one thing, she said, her breath uneven. Anything. Her eyes locked on mine, burning. Don't walk away when it gets hard. Everyone else does. I swallowed hard, the promise heavy on my tongue. Then I'll be the one who doesn't. The words hung there, fragile, dangerous, but real. For the first time that night, I saw her walls falter. Not collapse, not vanish, but tremble. And when she finally pulled me into her arms, it wasn't desperation, or fear, or even defiance. It was surrender, emotional closure, and ending with viewer engagement prompts. The house was quiet again, but it didn't feel empty anymore. We stayed there, her arms around me, neither of us rushing to speak. The knock on the door, the silenced phone, the years that had weighed her down. All of it lingered in the corners of the room. But for once, she didn't seem crushed beneath it. I don't know what tomorrow looks like, she admitted, pulling back just enough to search my face. I've lived so long letting someone else decide for me. I don't even know how to start again. I brushed a loose strand of hair from her cheek, my voice quiet but steady. Then we start small, one night at a time. Her laugh was soft, uncertain, but it carried something new, hope. You make it sound so simple. Maybe it is, I said, though we both knew it wouldn't be. Later, when she finally sat down, I noticed the way she exhaled, like setting down a weight she'd carried too long. The scars of her past, her marriage, her regrets, the quiet she hated. They weren't gone, but she wasn't alone with them anymore. And me? I realized I wasn't the same either. What began as curiosity, a spark I couldn't ignore, had pulled something raw out of me. She had seen me, not as the kid on her porch with a glass of lemonade, not as the too young neighbor, but as someone who chose to stay. That mattered more than I thought it would. When I finally stood to leave, she walked me to the door. The porch light I had fixed earlier glowed softly above us, throwing her face into warm relief. This shouldn't be happening, she whispered, but there was no conviction in it anymore. I leaned against the doorframe, my smile small, almost shy. Neither should I. Her lips curved at that, the words pulling us back to the start, where everything first cracked open. A full circle neither of us could ignore. She reached for my hand, squeezing it once before letting go. Don't forget what you promised. I nodded. I won't. The night air was cooler than I expected when I finally stepped outside, but it didn't bite. For the first time, the quiet didn't feel heavy. It felt alive, waiting. Some stories don't end neatly. They don't tie themselves into perfect bows. But this one didn't need to. What mattered was the choice we both made. Not to run, not to deny what was real, but to face it, however flawed, however difficult. And maybe that's the lesson. Sometimes the things we're most afraid to admit are the ones that set us free.